Coming up on this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society, the forecast calls for Mario. It's dangerous to go alone, so the Nintendo Cartridge Society goes with you. Welcome to Nintendo Cartridge Society. My name is Patrick Ellers, and I am joined, as I am always joined, by my co-host, Mark Mitchell. Mark, how's it going?
It's going great. I like that it's been kind of like, well, first of all, I know we used to have a weather report on this show, but that's not what I'm doing. But you talking
This
about
is not the weather report.
Yes, but you talking about the forecast made me think it's obviously been sunnier more recently in LA. It's getting in
Obviously.
it's getting in like the 70 degrees, and yet I am
Mhm.
still perpetually always cold. It is troubling how like I feel very much like a cat where like I will have the windows open, I'll be letting the sun soak, and yet I'm still like, ooh, how many more layers can I add? So that way I like just create this oven of heat that I eventually
No, Mark,
remove
come on.
myself from so I can retain the heat. It just doesn't make sense. I
Mhm.
feel like I'm cold-blooded like a lizard. Like I just like constantly have to be sunning.
Well, so yeah, and this is what I was gonna say is that like maybe you should not be putting on all these layers. You should be sitting in the sun, letting the sun go directly to your skin, so you can absorb the warmth and heat, and then put on the layers. Keep that heat trapped.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting. I mean, I don't really I have no like rebuttal for it. I guess other
Yeah.
than like I feel like in order to I would have to pull up my blinds, which means the people in the building across the street, if they were looking over, they would just see this like
Mhm.
really like brightly pale body like laying
Well,
in
this
the
will help
sun.
that too.
That's a good point. Again, I have no
Mark,
rebuttal.
don't be ashamed of your body. Um, Speaking of shame for one's body, my copy of Sonic Forces for the Nintendo Switch. Would you like to borrow it? I don't know what I'm implying with that. Is that Sonic has an embarrassing body? I don't know. Whatever it is, I didn't like it. No one has an embarrassing body. We all have bodies. It's fine. If you'd like to borrow my copy of Sonic Forces, all you gotta do is email us at Nintendo Cartridge Society
At
at
gmail.com.
gmail.com. And give us a mailing address so I can send it to you. You may end up by just a matter of goosery. You may end up getting a copy of Untitled Goose Game to also play and then return. There's no predicting when the goose goes out and when the hedgehog goes out. It's just something we all have to live with. There's some uncertainty in our lives, and that's representative of that uncertainty.
And of course, Patrick, you are right that this show is very body positive, except of course for the Sonic character Tails, who is an unlovable monster.
That's right. I don't know if we've articulated this clearly enough on previous episodes, but every time we utter Tails' name, we are holding back vomit. We do not care for Tails, and we will not expand on what it is about him that we do not like. But we do not like Tails. Miles per Prowler. We don't like him. That's a NCS policy right there. Mark, we are coming up on April, which means that we are going to be doing a Kid Icarus month. Hopefully, people can play along with us and pick up the Kid Icarus games and play through them as we do. On April 8th, we will be talking about the original Kid Icarus. The best way to play this game, and the way that I'm going to, for the purposes of this show, is the 3D Classics version on the Nintendo 3DS, but it is also available on your Nintendo Switch Online, which you probably already pay for, so it's a freezy, easy one to do. On April 15th, we are going to be playing Kid Icarus of Myths and Monsters on the Game Boy, which is also available on the 3DS Virtual Console. And on April 22nd, we'll be closing out Kid Icarus month with Kid Icarus Uprising on the 3DS. Mark, are you excited about this?
I am excited. Other than like briefly messing around with the first Kid Icarus game when it's been available on like the NES Classic Edition and the NES Switch Online, I have not really played any of these games. And so I'm super interested. Like, I'm looking forward to it. I think it's fun that we have used these themed months to kind of like dive into games that we're not familiar with.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a good like corner of the Nintendo universe that like is sort of there but sort of isn't. Like it's this weird ephemera. I'm excited to like really dig into it and all the weirdness, especially in those first two games. By the third one, it's still very weird, but like it feels more like a regular video game. Do you know what I mean?
Oh,
Or at least like a
interesting. I mean, I
modern
don't
video
really
game.
because I've never played it. So
This is gonna be so fun. I'm very excited. But Mark, that starts 2 weeks from now. What we are doing right now is that we are going to be predicting slash hoping our way into the future of the Mario franchise. Let's get into the main topic. So this whole, I don't know, 6 months. When did we start celebrating Mario's 35th anniversary?
oh man, the direct was in August, right?
I think that's right. August or September. So it's been about half a year that we've been celebrating Mario's 35th anniversary. And as all anniversary celebrations tend to do, um, we spent a lot of time looking back into Mario's past, which, appropriate. What else can you do, really? You can only talk about the things that have already been. But, there will be another 35 years of Mario at least, right? Like this character has
He'll bury
embedded
us.
himself. Yeah, he will bury us. Mario will outlive us all. He will spit on our tombstones. And frankly, we'll just be honored that he attended our funerals at all. So, um, but so we thought we would take a little time here at the end of the 35th anniversary celebration, which, as you know, ends next week on the 31st, with some of the special Mario stuff coming off the Nintendo eShop or the Switch eShop. And we would spend some time talking about what we think the future of Mario is going to be. And specifically what like the next, or at least this is how I approach this, was what I think the next like Mario platformer game either could be or will be.
Yeah, I did the same because I mean little it's been a little over 3 years now since we got Odyssey, and no new Mario game in sight so far.
Right.
And yeah, so it kind of gets the wheels turning. Like, what are they working on? What are they cooking up over there?
Yeah. So what are they cooking up over there? And I don't know about you, Mark, but I found both. So we each came up with a couple of things that we hoped for and a couple of just like predictions. And in some cases, like some of my predictions are things that I want to see. But also they're just kind of like things that feel not inevitable. I don't feel like anything in Mario is inevitable. Which is where I was leading initially with this, is that I find this to be incredibly difficult because I don't know what I want from Mario until they give it to me.
Yeah. Oh, totally. 100%. Like some of the ones that I
Like,
have in my
yeah.
hopes are completely like if you had asked me before Odyssey, they would not have even like crossed my mind.
Absolutely. Well, I was talking about this with Sarah earlier today, and I was like, you realize that before like Mario Galaxy, you never would have thought that like Mario needs to go into space and like Mario's a good place for like mind-bending gravity puzzles. Like that's the kind of stuff that like you would never. But now it's like, yes, absolutely. Mario has adventures in space with the Queen of Stars. Like it they and as soon as they introduce that stuff to you, you're like, yes, this is now a fundamental part of what makes Mario Mario. And I think Odyssey does the same thing too, right? Where like you're dressing up Mario in different costumes. What other game do you dress up Mario in little dumb little costumes? He visits all these like kingdoms with like cute little people in them, and that's not like it's all so they're so good at introducing new fundamental pillars to Mario that the future of the series seems lacking without those elements in it.
Totally. And trying to predict, like trying to think like what the next Mario could be is a fool's errand because Mario can be anything. And that's kind of like the secret
Anything.
sauce of like Mario and of Zelda is that when you think like of us, we kind of experienced this last week when we were talking about like entry points for the 3D Mario series. It's like, well,
Yeah.
each one is kind of really its own unique thing. And so none of them, all of them are great games on their own, but none I would say points as like the uh epitome of what of Mario platforming, because they're all so different and they're introducing new stuff all the time. And so
Right.
like my non-galaxy brain can only think of like I am so like it is very reflexive where it's like, okay, this is what I've seen in the past, so this is what I would like to see carried forward. It's hard for me to wrap my mind around what might be coming next.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that preamble, let's try to do it anyway. Mark, where would you like to start? Would you like to start with hopes or predictions? I mean,
I
what seems like more fun to you?
well, I not necessarily more fun, but I'm gonna say predictions, and that's because pre at the beginning of this year when we did like predictions for Nintendo's 2021, I made the prediction that at the end of this year we would see the reveal for a direct sequel to Super Mario Odyssey, where it would be like Super Mario
Great.
Odyssey 2, like we saw with Super Mario Galaxy, and then shortly followed up by Super Mario Galaxy 2. So I'd like to start with predictions because I want to retract my previous prediction. I
Oh,
now do not believe that we're going to see a sequel to Super Mario Odyssey. I think whatever this game is, it is going to be a discrete new Mario experience that maybe
mhm.
takes elements from Super Mario Odyssey, like the format or whatever, but is going to be like its own unique game, not like directly tied to Super Mario Odyssey.
Yeah, I think the fact that we got a Super Mario Galaxy 2 once upon a time is just an absolute anomaly of a thing, right? Like uh we had never seen anything like that before. We will never see anything like that again. That's just it. That's the one time Nintendo did it.
I kind of think that if we were going to see an Odyssey 2, it would have come faster. Like
Yeah.
cuz I feel like what happened or it seems like the presentation of Galaxy 2 was couched in the terms of like we had so many ideas coming out of Galaxy that we were like we just had to put them into a new game. And so I feel like that's what birthed Super Mario Galaxy 2. And if we were going to get an Odyssey 2 where they were like we had so many ideas for other kingdoms that didn't make it into the game, that it would have followed faster. Is at least that's my thinking for why at this point we're just going to get a completely new game.
That is a good prediction. I am going to counter it with my most dour prediction on this list. It is that nothing. We will not see another Mario platformer on the Switch, which I think is kind of likely. I mean, we haven't seen a new 2D Mario, right? But we have seen an awful lot of Mario games ported and Mario Odyssey, and like that sort of fits the brief for Mario games for like mainline Mario games on a piece of Nintendo hardware. Like that's it.
I think it's totally possible. For sure. I mean, again, other than the outlier of Galaxy, one per generation is kind of what you
Yep.
get. Same with like Smash Brothers, same with like Mario Kart. I'm not really expecting like a Mario Kart 9. But it is interesting that we're getting a Splatoon 3 so quickly.
Yeah, that's true.
And the reason why I think maybe it is possible that we'll get another Mario platform on the Switch is because Nintendo keeps talking about the Switch being in maybe like the middle of its lifespan. And
Yeah, sure.
I think Odyssey did extremely like obviously it sold a ton of copies, but it doesn't seem to have the same sort of like evergreen legs that like the first Breath of the Wild does, and some of like the other franchises like Splatoon or Mario Kart 8 for sure,
Yeah.
which just like continue to like month after month like chart. And so that's what makes me think that okay, we're maybe like halfway through the Switch's life. Another big Mario game would be a way to like it to me like I could see it happening.
That's interesting and possibly ties into one of my other predictions if I can do two in a row if I'm going to
Totally.
be so bold. And this is one that I've trotted out in some one form or another on previous episodes of this show, but either a New Super Mario All Stars, like a collection of the new Super Mario Brothers games that aren't New Super Mario Brothers U, or just New Super Mario Brothers Switch, like just a new game in the New Super Mario Brothers U engine.
I totally think, yeah, that's a great point. When I was thinking of these, I thought of like the more like 3D platformers in the style of Odyssey. But I think you're 100% right that probably the next new Mario game we're going to get is more of like a 2D side scrolling, probably multiplayer, probably called New Super Mario Brothers type game. That makes complete sense
Switch,
to me.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I'd be really happy about that. I would be interested to see what the gimmick, for lack of a better term, is. Although I guess like Super Mario Brothers U didn't really have much of a gimmick. It was kind of a refinement of the Wii game.
I mean, yeah, it did have the gimmick on the Wii U in the form of the fifth player that had the touchpad and could like add platforms.
Oh, I keep forgetting about that.
Yeah, I mean it's a weird function that like lifts so cleanly out of the game that like it's sort of like, oh, I guess you didn't need or even want that because it's not built into the level design at all. Um, but yeah, I mean, it would be nice to see like a new gimmick, right? Or like a new idea behind it. I think one of the things that you and I were both impressed by in New Super Mario Brothers 2 was that it felt like new and novel and fun to, collect as many coins as you could and like really get into these like coin bonanza situations where you're collecting like hundreds of coins at a time, and it's just, funny to be hearing that sound effect so many times in a row. Um yeah, and so like, what that would be for a new game on the Switch, who knows?
Yeah, I also think it'd be interesting if they were to do like a 2D style game and actually this would be confusing potentially. But you know how in I don't know that we'll ever see like a direct sequel to 3D World, but you know how in Mario Maker 2 they had like the 3D World style like
Yeah.
2D side scrolling? Like I think it would be
Yeah.
interesting to basically potentially blow that out into a full game and take some of the ideas like the Catsuit Mario and like all that kind of stuff and put it into that more traditional just linear side scrolling.
Yeah, and that would make sense too. Man, I forgot about Super Mario Maker 2. It's amazing how many Mario platforming games have already been on Switch, right? 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, Odyssey, Mario All Star 3D All Stars, um, New Super Mario Brothers U, and Super Mario Maker. There are so many on this system.
Yeah, and they're all like kind of like uh feeling like a different niche, like
Yeah.
they're not really repeating themselves, which is impressive considering they're basically pumping out a new Mario game every year.
Yeah, or more than that. I mean, not new. Obviously, a lot of them are uh, carried forward from immediately the Wii U or the previous generation. But yeah,
So
Mark, other predictions.
yeah, so my next prediction is that we're not going to see, again, like following this idea that it's not going to be a direct sequel to Super Mario Odyssey. I think we are saying
Mhm.
goodbye to Cappy. I don't think Cappy
I
will
think so too.
be a prominent part of whatever the next game is. But I do think there will be a new mechanic that augments Mario's moveset. Because at this point, I think like that is kind of part of the Mario formula. And
Yep.
Odyssey kind of had two. Like it had Cappy itself, but then it had the capture mechanic that also comes from Cappy. But like you had Flood in Super Mario Sunshine. You had the gravity mechanic in Galaxy and Galaxy 2. And so I think we're gonna see something else. I don't really have a good guess as to what that's going to be. Again, that's part of like
Right.
my feeble brain is not
That's
able
the
to project.
well,
Yeah.
that's the specificity that's impossible, right? Like
But what if I did?
you
What if I was like, it's like gonna be like a Mario game that's like Water World, and Mario's gonna have gills and he can swim really fast. And then it
there you
happened.
go. I'm glad you took a swing.
Yeah, sorry. The second part was really important. That like, yes, I can make the jump projection easily, but the second part where it actually comes true would be miraculous.
It's just like because no one was gonna guess. Oh yeah, Mario gets a water powered jetpack that talks to him, or or Mario's hat is alive and can possess his enemies. Like, that's it's just not it's just not something that you can predict. Like, again, I don't know that I want something from Mario until Nintendo shows me
Yeah,
Mario
totally.
doing it, and then I want it. Yeah, you are 100% correct. Whatever they're gonna do, like we're not gonna go back to just like a Mario running around Super Mario 64 style. Um, there needs to be some other element that is like a permanent part of um changing Mario's moveset or expanding it in some way. Has to be.
Yeah, and it's always like with some sort of uh I mean, obviously fun is a big part of why they make any of these changes, but I always just think like going back to Sunshine when they introduced Flood, and Flood was kind of a response to people's experiences with Super Mario 64, where like, oh, giving players a little bit more control, like a little bit an ability to make
Yeah.
corrections on the fly. And so it just makes me think like, okay, like coming out of Odyssey, what did they learn, or what are they taking away from people's experience with Odyssey that'll inform whatever the next Mario game is?
Yeah. I mean, it is tough, and I will say this again when we're talking about our hopes for the next Mario game. But a lot of my hopes sort of end up pointing towards Odyssey, right? Where like I think that game is just so well constructed on just like a base level that it is pretty close to being my ideal form of a Mario
I
game.
know. I agree. Like in a lot of ways, it is, and so I wonder if because how do you follow that up with like another 3D like platformer in that vein?
Yeah.
And so as much as I said, I don't think we're gonna get another 3D world, and I don't really think we're going to. But I do wonder if the next big Mario game that isn't like just a new Super Mario Brothers style will be something different because it gives them like breathing room between
Yeah.
like Odyssey and then whatever that follow up has to be. So instead of being like, and we're making a game that's structured like Odyssey or like feels like Odyssey but isn't a sequel to Odyssey, it's like no, Mario's doing this like this different thing for this game.
Yeah, I mean that's really tricky too though because it's like what hasn't Mario done lately,
Yeah.
right? Like we just rattled off like all those games that came out on Switch, which means it's all those games that came out in the last 3.5 years, right? Um, so like yeah, every kind of Mario has been released on the Switch recently. So like whatever they're gonna do, it's got to be like a swing away from all of it,
Yeah.
all of it. Like we may get a Super Mario 3D World 2 at some point, with a different name. Um, but like it'll be a couple years down the road. Like it's just not going to be right now. Mark, I have one more prediction, and it is that look, we've played too many music videos in Mario games in the last couple years for me to think that it is something that they are going to abandon in the future. I will point you to Jump Up Superstar, the festival sequence in Mario Odyssey, to the Break Free sequence as you are escaping Honeyloon Ridge at the end of the Moon section of Odyssey, and of course the Fury Bowser like transition and fight. When you turn yourself into Giga Cat Mario and fight the God Killer Bowser, there is some heavy metal guitar and like some like chanting and like rock and roll like screaming under it. I think the Mario team has gotten so good at building these moments that are based in music and like video game challenges in like discrete little bite-sized chunks. And we see those like the bite size like gameplay in like Mario 35 and Super Mario Maker in the NES remix. Like they've got it. So like we're gonna see something else like that, something based in music and in gameplay, and in having a spectacular music video experience in the world of Super Mario Brothers.
Patrick, I couldn't agree with you more. That is my third prediction as well. Is that we're going to I call them because I struggled with the term as well. I called them showcase moments for lack of a better term. But
Yeah, great.
yeah. So the way I couched it was like, oh, we're going to see continued exploration of these showcase moments. because um initially I was like batting around the term, or like with without being able to articulate it well, it was like cinematic was what came to mind. But it's this like
Mm,
it's I because I think what is so unique and special about these things is like not that they're not taking away like your agency. Like you're still like actively participating, but it feels like
yes.
more than just a regular Mario level where you like the music is in the background, you hit the end, the music stops. Like um it is a melding of these like musical moments, like and it feels special with like the platforming that you're doing. It's just like really unique. The closest thing I can think of is in what Retro did with Tropical Freeze, Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. The way that
Yeah.
those levels are structured, like the music changes and everything like modulates depending on like where you are. It's more like a theme park ride. Those levels are like theme park rides, and
Yeah.
that's kind of like the experience that you're getting from in Super Mario Odyssey. I haven't played Bowser's Fury yet, but from what you're describing, like it's a very similar kind of like moment where you're like, whoa, this is it was like mind blowing. The ending, I mean, I guess spoilers if you haven't played it, but the ending of Super Mario Odyssey, like when you capture Bowser using his hat, and then you're like
Yep.
punching and you're going through and all that's great. And then like this like Avril Lavigne-esque like song kicks in. It is so
Yeah.
unexpected. Like that was truly, truly magical because it was just like this amazing like combination of all of these sensory like experiences. Like that is what I want to see more of. Like it was so special.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's nothing quite like, punching your way out of a collapsing moon, right? To like a rock tune. It just that's so fun and so cool, and like it makes me wish that they had someone uh with a vision like Mizuguchi, the guy behind like Tetris Effect and Luminous, to like really build a sort of, Mario musical experience that like you mentioned in Tropical Freeze, it's sort of like the music builds as you play through it, and like you can see like the diegetic, some of the music is happening diegetically, like there are those owls blowing into horns, and like those horns are part of the music, and so like you can wait till you hear that note played and you know that that horn played it. Yeah, all of that is this is one of those predictions that like I just genuinely
I
want
know.
as well, like, man, if it's just like a series of like cool Mario music videos I can tune into, like, yeah, yeah, man.
I mean, we might as well roll into my first hope, which is straight up that I would love more original songs. And like I love Mario music, but Super Mario Odyssey, Jump Up Superstar and the Escape song at the end, like both of those were so unexpected, and now I'm just like craving more of that from Nintendo. I remember when Jump Up Superstar was first played at E3 2017, before when we were getting our first like deeper look at what Odyssey was. And it was so unexpected, like never in a million years. It's just so weird. And like the music video where Mario's like dancing with a bunch of like real life humans is
Oh yeah,
just
I forgot about that.
so bonkers. But that's
Yeah.
exactly what I want. Like when we're talking about like Nintendo's ability to surprise us and keep making like new discoveries with Mario. It's like I never knew I wanted these like musical numbers in Mario. And now I will be so disappointed if the next one doesn't have moments like this.
Yeah, 100%. And like the it gives them such an awesome opportunity to uh you know write these songs, have these recordings of like awesome songs in there, while also celebrating um what Mario has sonically been in the past, right? Like one of the things that we really geeked out about in Jump Up Superstar back when it came out, and I'll reiterate it now because that was 4 years ago, is that the bridge of Jump Up Superstar, when the vocals are going like Odyssey, yes, see, Odyssey, yes, see, the bass line is doing the 25 cc or 25 meter, 25 mm, whatever it is, the Donkey Kong music, that doon doon doo doo
It's,
doo doon doon doo
that's
doo doon.
awesome.
It's so cool.
Well, and
And like they could do that with anything, with any Mario music.
Well, and tonight I went back and listened to the Escape song because just to like remind myself of it. And there are like samples or pieces of other Mario music that like I can't immediately place and say, "Oh, this is from like this level or this theme or whatever." But you just know that it's Mario music and it's like
Yeah.
intertwined with it. It's just awesome. It's just so good.
Yeah. So that's that's part one of our wants. That is just exactly what we see in Super Mario Odyssey. I love it.
Even though most of our predictions are that we're gonna get nothing at all like Odyssey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we should just go back and play Odyssey. Okay, so first thing but before I get into my first hope, I posed this question to Sarah, and her first answer, without thinking, it was an animal response, top of her brain. She said cat suits. So for Sarah, you just need the cat bell power up, and like that's gonna be a good Mario game for her. I don't disagree. The cat suit is phenomenal. It's so fun. It increases Mario's mobility, in kind of the same way that you were talking about before. And like gives him the extra attack power, and you can climb walls and stuff. It's just so good.
It's so interesting, like the fine line between the or whatever it is, that tipping point where the power-ups become something that are like memorable and you're like, yes, I need this, versus the power-ups that they introduce and you're like, whatever, like the squirrel suits from
Yeah.
the new Super Mario series, where you're like, it's fine, or like the embiggening mushroom, where you're like, it's fine, like, but it doesn't like stick with you in the same way that, like the cat suit obviously like sticks with everybody.
Yeah. Well, and so my first hope is sort of connected to that as well. Is that I hope that the next game figures out its relationship, or like it is more intentional about lives and power-ups. So again, Odyssey and Bowser's Fury are both good about the first one. They don't have lives. There's no life counter. When you die, you just lose some coins and get kicked back to where you were last. And that's pretty good. I feel like I want a little bit more consequences, but nothing like a game over. Like even if it's just keeping track of the number of times you die or something. But yeah, no more lives. It's crazy to play Super Mario 3D World, and you're like, I can run out of lives. Like what is this? What are we doing? Especially because you just go into World 1, 2, and line up the turtle shell and do some turtle tipping, get 1,000 lives, and then hopefully you never run out of them. But then it's like, why is the life counter there in the first place? It's so antiquated, and we just don't need it anymore. And the second thing is, figure out your relationship to power ups, because I don't think the tried and true Mario system of be big, get hit, become small, or be big, get a power up, get hit, lose the power up. I don't think that's I don't think that's satisfying anymore. I think if you need a power up to get through an area, you should just be able to turn that power up on, and you can take 3 hits and then you're dead. Like I think that's how it should, and you keep the power up that whole time. If I get a cat suit, I want to be able to access that cat suit at any time. If I get a boomerang suit, I want to be able to access that boomerang suit at any time. It's not fun to get hit, lose the power up, and then backtrack until you find that power up again. Like that, we don't. That is the thing we don't need anymore.
Yeah, that's interesting. I had never really thought about that, just because I consider that kind of like progression of power-ups to just be part of Mario.
Right.
But you're like, offhand, I agree with you, where I think it still makes sense for like the 2D course-based levels, but the 3D levels, like an open world like Odyssey, like I agree that it's definitely not fun to have to like backtrack and to have an almost like Mega Man-esque system where it's just like, no, you've unlocked this and now it is available to you, and how you deploy it is up to you, is interesting. And I would love to see how that affected like the development of the game, like the level development and like the design and everything, to accommodate for a change like that.
Yeah, and could even make things, a little bit more challenging. Like that any one hit is not going to then make it so you simply can't progress, on like whatever secret path So Bowser's Fury sort of gets close to doing this, in that you can store up to 5 of any of the power-ups that you can deploy at any time, right? Since it's not like the new Super Mario Brothers games where you have to use it before going into a level, or Mario 3 obviously also did that. Um, so like it ends up being a functionally infinite, right? Because like you have 5 power-ups, you're going to encounter another one before you use all 5 of them to like start to refill it. So I don't know why it's not just like turn on the Tanuki suit, of course.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I haven't played Bowser's Fury yet, so I didn't realize that was the system. I agree. To me, that seems like a good like middle ground almost, where you're not getting
Hmm.
rid of the system entirely. But I do think it's a great idea for them to just like figure out like, yeah, like what is, I guess how you put it, just like our relationship with the power up structure.
Yeah. Do you need the cat suit in order to do this part of the level? I shouldn't be able to lose it while I'm attempting to do the level, right? Like
Yeah.
it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. So my hope for the next Mario game is I would love to see a fun new group of sub villains in the vein of the Koopalings or the Broodals. I really like when they introduce these villains, like these like side characters, and I feel like they
Yeah.
have better luck with villains than they do with like heroes. Uh, and I mean that in the sense that like I'm playing through 3D World right now, and you're
Yeah.
saving these pixies or little like fairy things or whatever.
They're Sprixies, but go on.
Yeah, Sprixies. I don't like the Sprixies. Don't want to see them ever again. Don't need the Sprixies in my Mario. I don't like them in this game. I don't
Wow.
like so
I don't I can't I don't know if I can stand for this.
and so I just don't think we need like more things for Mario to save. Although I guess it makes sense in this context because you're playing as like other characters that could potentially be in peril. But yeah, just give me more of these Koopalings, give me more of these Brutals. I thought the Brutals were great. I would love to see. I would play as the Brutals in some weird like download only side game. You know the I know it came out before Super Mario Odyssey did. But you know that
Mhm.
uh like game we talk about occasionally. I can never remember what it's called, but it's the one where like the robots are butt stomping on the
Yeah,
ground.
Flip Wars.
Flip
Yeah.
Wars, yeah, that like downloadable title that Nintendo released early in the Switch's life, just kind of like out of nowhere. And if that had been starring the Brutals from Super Mario Odyssey,
Oh yeah.
I would have
Be there in a second.
100% like wanted to buy that game. Yeah.
I like that. Like that there's no reason they would be stomping on colored panels, but like whatever.
I mean, why were the robots doing it? It doesn't make sense.
No, it's a very good point. Yeah, that's interesting. What is it about like a group of like a new group of villains that is it just because I mean because you and I do spend a lot of time talking and thinking about the Koopalings for one thing.
Well, it's because our
But like
brains are
the
diseased.
That's true, Mark. That's true. But I mean, the very first ranking episode, or the first like frivolous ranking episode we ever did was ranking the Koopalings. Like everything else prior to that was ranking like games in a series. And that was the first time that you and I were like, let's just do this. Let's just have fun. We'll talk about the Koopalings, and it'll be like a goofy good time. And it ended up being one of my favorite episodes of the show ever. Um, and obviously I just want like a little bit of like weirdo personality that's just barely expressed and like lets my imagination like run away with the inner life of some dumb Nintendo
Well,
villain.
and I think that's exactly why like it works better for villains than for like the protagonists or whatever you want to call it, like the good guys, is because you can like villains are just more fun, right? Look at like DC
Yeah.
Comics Rogues Gallery. Those villains are just a lot cooler than a lot of the heroes, and it's because they can be a little crazier, they can be a little zanier. You can put a lot more personality into them than into their design, into all that kind of stuff than you are with like these Sprixies. And so I think it's just more fun with villains to have like these humorous like villains. And so I absolutely would love to see a new group of these introduced in whatever the next game is.
Yeah, you got to be really careful with the Sprixies because if you give them too much of a personality, you may not want to save them, right?
Right. Yeah. Exactly, exactly. But and it's been fun for me. I guess it's been probably like 10 or 15 years at this point where Nintendo has really embraced the Koopalings and they're like
Yeah,
incorporated into a lot of stuff. Because there was a while after Super Mario Brothers 3 where they didn't really show up that often.
and World
Oh, World, of
and Super
course.
Mario World. Yeah.
Yeah. Where I feel like they didn't show up that often. And it was a lot of like Bowser Jr. And then at some point they started being embraced again. And that's really exciting.
That's a good one, and not something that I think I ever would have thought of, Mark. That's wonderful.
My brain
Um,
is diseased, as noted.
both of our brains are diseased. So my next hope is there, there's a vibe that appears sort of on the periphery of Mario games that I want explored again in a new one. And it is the sort of spooky, mysterious, but not ghosty. Here's where I'm taking my inspiration from here is the Forest of Illusion in Super Mario World. Um, a place that is like a wooded area where there are a lot of false exits, a lot of like weird things that don't totally make sense. And then I'm also pulling from the Wooded Kingdom in Super Mario Odyssey before you open it up to like the Steam Gardens part of it, where there's almost like a little bit of a vibe of like the end of Alice in Wonderland when she's like wandering through, and all the weird animals are just different kinds of birds, um, where like we lost in a dark forest and anything can change at any time, and I just want that like sort of unpredictable sort of dark disorienting energy to put Mario inside of, because I think when you put that like little ball of running jumping energy in an environment like that, it makes it's such a fun juxtaposition of like slow and dark and plotting and like Mario.
One of the I'm playing through 3D World right now, and one of the levels I did not that long ago that really left an impression on me was there's like a ghost level that is on like a shipwreck or like a series of shipwrecks.
Mhm.
And it's really
Yeah.
cool. Like for whatever reason, part of it I think was just like the level design where you can jump on them, but there's like ship masts and that kind of stuff that are just like
Yeah.
like coming out of the water, really striking angles. And I agree with you. I think it is cool when like Mario dabbles in that and like in a different way than in the like ghost house that we normally see.
Yes.
It's like a little bit stranger and not necessarily like scary, but just that level of like um putting Mario in this removing him almost from the Mushroom Kingdom and that sense of like safety and fun and putting him in this mysterious, little bit darker, little bit scarier environment.
Yeah, I want Mario to get lost in the fog, right? Like I want him to have like a Twin Peaks what's going on here experience. Like I just I wanna take Mario to weird places.
So my final hope is I would like to see the return of Super Mario Brothers 2 style character choice. Because where we see character choice in Mario games now is in the multiplayer games. So in New Super Mario Brothers, in Super Mario 3D World, you can play as different characters, but but I feel like it's just not really like the same thing. It's almost intended for the multiplayer aspect. Like, yes, you can play Super Mario World as any of the characters that you want, and in order to like fully complete the game, it wants you to complete it as every character. But but that doesn't feel like the same experience to me. I'm imagining like if you're playing Super Mario Odyssey and you're out in those environments, and then you switch to no, now I'm going to be Luigi, now I'm going to be
I see
Toad,
what you're saying.
now
Yeah.
I'm going to be Princess, now I'm going to be like Yoshi or whatever. Like having that sort of choice, I uh I think would be really cool because it's something we have not seen for a really long time.
Yeah, I always think about the I disagree a little bit on how the character selection is in 3D World. Like I do like to approach different levels as different characters in a very Super Mario Brothers 2 kind of way. But I do get your point that it is like tied to the multiplayer, and you almost get the impression that it wouldn't be there if not for multiplayer. Um, but I always think about the DS remake of Mario 64, where there are like 3 more playable characters, right? Luigi, Yoshi, and Wario. Um, and like just how weird that makes that game. That like each of these characters has a different set of moves, and like move predictably so, right? Like Luigi jumps a little higher. Yoshi has a flutter kick. Wario is big and lands on stuff heavy, and like all of the things that you know about these characters. I think that is a great one. Absolutely something that I want in almost all Mario games going forward. Give me choice of player character. Start doing weird ones. Give me Waluigi. Give me Daisy. Like, let's go all out.
It would be, yeah. I feel like it would be weird. I totally forgot about Super Mario Mario 64 on the DS. But yeah, that's a great example where I think there is this moment of like, whoa, this is so weird to be playing as like Luigi in this game or like as Yoshi in this game. And I think
Yeah.
like Mario 64 in my mind is not really like designed for something like that, but I think it really opens
Right.
up the I think you could do a lot with level design if you had that in mind, where it's like, okay, and also there's this like somebody could play as Toad and they're going to be able to run through this super fast, or somebody's going to play as
Right.
Peach, and I think it should be Vacation Peach from Odyssey, but that's just me. And
Oh,
she's going to be able
100%.
I think Peach should just be liberated from now on.
Yeah, I think she should get to at the beginning of every level choose which vacation outfit she's
Yeah.
in.
Yeah, actually, maybe that's my secret fourth hope for whatever the next Mario 3D platformer is that Peach is still like living her life. She's still traveling.
Still on vacation.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Did we, when we were talking about Mario or Pokemon Snap games the other week, did anyone suggest a Mario Odyssey where you are just taking pictures with the princess as she vacations around the world?
No, but that's such a good idea.
We're fools, Mark. I can't believe we didn't. Can't believe we didn't land on that before.
Oh, actually, do you know what? Before I forget, when you were talking about kind of like those like spookier atmospheres, talking about Odyssey,
Yeah.
I just remembered another really striking part in that game is when you go to that like kind of medieval but like hyper realistic
The
like
ruined
castle.
kingdom.
Yeah, where where you fight the dragon, and that again was so interesting to go to because you're like, oh, it's like this level of realism and like that you don't see in Mario games usually. It's just like really striking.
Just for a split second, you think you're at the end of a Kirby game or something. Mark, multiple characters is great. Do you have any like deep cut picks for characters you'd want to be able to play as?
I think it'd be nice to bring Penelope. Is that right?
That
doesn't feel
you're talking
right.
about the mayor.
Pauline.
Pauline.
Yeah,
Pauline. We did it.
I think it'd be fun to play as Pauline. I think Pauline should become like after we've recontextualized her in Odyssey. I think Pauline should just become a regular part of the Mario repertoire in the same way that Rosalina has.
Yeah, I think that's perfect. I love that. that is the best answer I think you could have given. I absolutely love it. So my last thing is multi-part, and I apologize for going down a like an imaginary rabbit hole of like what a Mario game could be or what could happen in a Mario game. But it hinges on Mark, this idea of multiplayer and of controlling multiple characters. But specifically, I want to take a page from most Mario RPGs, and I want to have Bowser ousted from his command of his Koopa army by a league of villains comprised of all the other Mario villains. So I'm talking Kamek, I'm talking Fawful, I'm talking Wart, I'm talking Tatanga, I'm talking Wario, I'm talking Smithy from Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars. They're fed up with him for whatever reason. They kick him out of his castle, and Kamek uses his magic to turn him into the thing that he hates most, a Mario-like human. So the game becomes Mario and like man Bowser who looks like Mario but is still kind of Bowsery, having to run around the world and like set things right.
That's fun. That's super fun. And then you get like in my head, I'm imagining this like human Bowser to, uh, be wearing the coveralls and the hat with like a bee on it, like all that kind of stuff as well.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And his move set is pretty similar to Mario's, except he does like all the sort of like grappling wrestling things that Bowser does, and tries to like throw people around. It's just a little bit more like tactile and hands on, and then Mario has just like a little bit more like actual like jumping range, and just you just play with the dynamic of those two characters. This could also be one where like you expand it out to the rest of the normal Mario playable characters, and then the Bowser Mario has to like recruit other characters to fill those roles. That'd be great, right? Like trying to convince a Koopa to put on like a green hat and be his Luigi, or you know,
Do you know what this
knocking on Daisy's door.
do you know what this sounds like? Like pitching this, I think it'd be super fun as a game. It actually sounds like a really good idea for the animated movie because then you can have like
yes,
you can give Bowser a voice in a way that like makes sense to give Bowser a voice, and you can have that interaction between the two characters. It's like a road movie basically where they learn to be friends.
yeah. Well, and I think I also just like this idea that all the other Mario villains had like one shot at Mario, right? Like, and they all did it in the form of like it's do or die. I'm gonna take out Mario. With the exception of Fawful, who's done it a bunch of times because of the Mario and Luigi series. But Bowser, he's always screwing around, right? He's always just kidnapping the princess. Mario wins her back. Whatever. It happens over and over again. So I wonder if the rest of these guys are just like, you're giving him too much practice. He's getting in too many reps fighting bad guys. We need to take you out so Mario gets soft, and then we can take him down.
I love this, and another thing that's so great about it is it would fulfill one of the like lifelong goals of this podcast, an overarching unspoken goal that is always there in the background, even if we don't articulate it weekly, which is Wart would be in another game.
Oh my God, yes. I mean, really, that's the headline of this. Hopes Wart, like that's it. We just want to see Wart again. There was a second here where I was like, are we treading dangerously close to Bowsette territory?
Um, but I feel like we might be close, but I feel
Right.
a safe distance from it. That
Yeah.
like people can still have their fan art, but it is not. But we're still like
It's not
far enough away.
canon,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, okay, those are our hopes and our predictions for whatever the next Mario game is going to be. Mark, when do you think let's close out with just like some sort of like realistic Mario talk, right? Um, Obviously we are closing the door on the 35th anniversary of Super Mario Brothers. I think it's reasonable to think that we're not going to hear any Mario news for a while.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Think yeah, I just have a hard time believing with what we don't know about the rest of Nintendo's 2021. And
Yeah.
I feel like really the only thing we have announced for 2022 is Splatoon 3, and that was like a huge surprise that I'm imagining when we'll really hear about the next Mario game is probably like this time next year.
Yeah. I mean, I think probably after Breath of the Wild 2.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
it's
totally.
and any earlier seems too early. I also think it is likely that we end up getting the aforementioned Mario Kart 9 or whatever that is before another new Mario game. Like I think there are so many other avenues like Mario adjacent that they have not like cashed in on in a new way on Switch. I mean, obviously, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is the best-selling game on the system. So, what do I actually know? Probably nothing. But like a new Mario Kart game would also sell great. A WarioWare game would be great. I think there's so much, or a Wario Land game could also be great. There are so many other places they can and probably should go, I think, before we get a new Mario game.
Yeah. And yeah. Oh, another reason to think it's not happening this year is because 3D World was released.
Yeah.
I feel like we've like checked the box of Mario game for the year. But yeah, I don't know. I think you're right that when you said that a 2D Mario is probably next. And so when we'll get like the next 3D adventure, it is possible that it may not be on Switch.
Yeah. It's wild to think about what'll come after the Switch. But that, Mark, I believe, is a different podcast. Let's close this out. All right, that is going to do it for this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society. Remember, please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts if you have not already. If you like the episode, you can share it on Facebook or Twitter or wherever you share stuff. We appreciate it when you do any of that. Sharing the episode, talking to someone about the show, the rating, the reviewing, all of it. I guess it is no longer subscribing. You should now follow us. Is that right? Am I getting the language right, Mark?
I think yeah, you should follow us. And if Apple Podcast hasn't changed to say it yet, it will in like a few weeks.
Do whatever you can do so you make sure that you don't miss out on any of episodes of the show. We do 2 a week. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Patrick_Ellers. Mark is at MKE Mitchell, and the show is at Nin Cart Society. There's also a Facebook page, which is just Nintendo Cartridge Society. Olivia Duncan made our logo. Our theme music is provided by 8-Bit Betty. You can get more of his music by going to 8bitbetty.com or by listening right now. For my co-host, Mark Mitchell, this is Patrick Eller saying, bring back Wart! And saying thank you for listening.
Hey, Oscar, Rachel, do you like Disney movies?
Yeah!
Have you seen all of them?
Yeah, we saw all the Disney animated movies.
And we saw all the Pixar animated movies, too.
How about the DComs?
What?
The Disney Channel original movies. You should listen to our podcast, Inside the Disney Vault, because we are watching all of them in chronological order.
Yeah, and we do fun segments, like we cast each other.
That's right, and my favorite segment, Zaddy Watch, where we rank every single DCOM daddy.
Ooh, you can listen to all this fun stuff on our podcast, Inside the Disney Vault on Campfire Media, wherever you listen to podcasts.
All right, guys, let's get back in the vault. It's cold out here.
Campfire.